Hello, it's Jim Hutchins for the Jerusalem Connection Truth Report for this week. There's been a lot of talk about the Golan Heights in Israel. It's the northernmost point in Israel. It's land that was taken from Syria in the Six-Day War in 1967. And there's a push on the part of Israel to have the United States recognize the sovereignty of Israel over these Golan Heights. This has come largely as a result of John Bolton's visit to Israel recently as the National Security Advisor, and Prime Minister Netanyahu emphasizing to him the importance of Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. They base that on what God has promised, a covenant promise of God. It's given throughout the Tanakh, the Old Testament, but it's specifically given to us in Genesis chapter 15, verse 18. On that day, Yahweh made a covenant, a promise, an eternal promise. That day, Yahweh made a covenant with Abram and said to your descendants, I give this land from the river of Egypt, the Nile River to the great river Euphrates. And the Euphrates River goes down half of Iraq. That means the land that God has promised to Israel and the descendants of Abraham. Covers all of Jordan, half of Syria, and half of Iraq. And that's a covenant promise that is yet to be fulfilled. But it will be fulfilled because God has decreed it. Rabbi Tuli Weiss of Israel 365 has noted this with regard to the Golan Heights. Moses, the servant of Yahweh, assigned that territory as a position. Thousands of years ago, God determined who would get that land, who that land belongs to. In this chapter, which summarizes the wars fought by the children of Israel to take possession of the Promised Land, we're also reminded of the wars that Moses fought. Moses led the people against Sihon and Og, captured the Gilead and the Bashan. This area became the inheritance of the tribes of Gad, Reuben, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. The Bashan is now known as the Golan Heights, which Israel conquered in the Six-Day War from Syria. Towering over the north of the country, the Golan Heights provides an essential strategic purchase that is vital to Israel's security. There's an article in the current Foreign Policy magazine written by Stephen Cook. An excerpt says this: should the United States recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights? The question has come up in the last few weeks because Israel's having an election in April. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reportedly been lobbying the Trump administration on the idea of formally acknowledging Israel's 1981 annexation over the Syrian territory and annexing it as sovereign territory of Israel. The U.S.-Israeli negotiations are a sideshow for a more fundamental strategic reason. Whether Washington recognizes Israel's annexation or not, the Israelis are never withdrawing from the Golan Heights. Never withdrawing. It is too strategic to their security. Nor should they. And I agree. They shouldn't, because God has declared who that land belongs to, who the Golan Heights belong to. Israel should be sovereign over it. The scriptures tell us that, and God's promises declare it and decreed it, and that's the truth.